This Week in Startups is brought to you by PagerDuty, serving as the hub of your operations, aggregating all of your infrastructure monitoring tools and alerting the right people and teams at the right time. Sign up today at pagerduty.com/twist and get a free t-shirt when you get your first alert. And Walker Corporate Law, a boutique law firm specializing in the representation of entrepreneurs. Visit them at walkercorporatelaw.com. At Launch Mobile Wearables and IoT, Jason and Peter Rojas, co-founder of Engadget and Gizmodo, sit down with Eric Migicovsky, founder and CEO of Pebble. Next, Jason, Peter, and Janice Fraser of Pebble explore the futures of transportation and on-demand.
That's what it's all about, man. They said, money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you. Yeah. Money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Launch Mobile, Wearables, and IoT. It's great to have everybody here. We've got a jam-packed schedule of amazing content for you. And I am going to waste no time bringing up Peter Rojas, who was the founder of not only Gizmodo, but also Engadget, and is now working at BetaWorks as an entrepreneur in residence. Please welcome Peter Rojas.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me, Jason.
Good to see you. And we're going to bring up Eric Migicovsky. He'll sit here. Eric, come on out. Eric, of course, is the founder of the Pebble watch and is one of the early pioneers in wearables. Please welcome Eric.
Morning. Good morning.
Thanks for joining us, Eric. So let's take a look at the watch. And how long have you been at it now?
Been working on this for about 7.5 years, if you can believe it.
7.5 years?
Yeah.
And let's take a look at where you started.
Well, we started off a while back building...
Oh, this is the first one, huh?
Let's
pull this up. This is hysterical.
This is a circuit board, basically, that we attached to our wrists. It was pretty dangerous, and that was folded sheet metal. I don't know if it's going to come.
Yeah, you can
stage.
pull that up, Bryce. The Pebble circa 2008 slide.
Yeah.
And you decided not to ship this for what reason?
Well, we did build some demos, and at the time it worked exclusively with BlackBerry. Remember, this is 2008.
Right.
So we were based in Waterloo, Ontario, and that was pretty much the phone that had gotten the most users at the time.
Yeah, when you guys see this, it's going to be, oh, there it is. Beautiful.
Yeah.
So you have a SMS from Brad saying, where are you? And you went for a kind of more cyberpunk aesthetic with this version?
Well, this was one step beyond the first Arduino prototype that we had hacked together using a screen from an old Nokia phone. This actually worked at the time. We had built like 2 or 3 of them just to show it off.
And this was pairing over Bluetooth and...
Yeah, it was exactly, I mean, in some ways, it was a very similar pitch to what we have today. It's a watch that shows you text messages, emails, calendars, and it was, the very first kind of incarnation of a smartwatch.
And what was the inspiration in 2008?
It's pretty simple. I'm a big cyclist. I love biking, and I used my phone while I was biking, and I just didn't want to. I wanted to see who was calling or texting or emailing me without having to take my phone out while biking.
Yeah.
You didn't want to crash.
Yeah, I wasn't born with the gene that lets you text message while biking, and so I had to do this instead.
We do see people doing that in the city. It's quite...
Yeah.
Quite
I wonder
horrific.
if there'll be some natural selection that comes with that as well.
Exactly. So let's see the next slide.
So
Next evolution.
3 weeks ago, we announced our next watch. It's called Pebble Round. So it's kind of
Beautiful.
7 years later from that very first incarnation of what a smartwatch could be. Pebble Round is the smallest and lightest and thinnest smartwatch in existence. It still has all the great things that a Pebble does, like an always-on screen, a really long battery life, connects to iPhone and Android, and keeps you keeps you in the zone. It lets you see what's coming up on your phone without having to take your phone out of your pocket and get out of the moment. But for the very first time, we think this is the first smartwatch that actually looks like a watch.
Right.
And we've been building them for 7 years. We've built a variety of different watches. We have the original Pebble, which is a sports watch. It's very colorful. It's light, it's water resistant, and it's a great sports and running and fitness watch. We have the Pebble Time Steel, which are more stylish, but still a little bit more of like that classic larger watch aesthetic. We wanted to push the limits and see what was possible, and this was, kind of the extent of our engineering capabilities today.
So this is going to be your third watch. Are you going to kickstart this one or no?
No, we launched this 3 weeks ago on our website, and we've been taking orders. It's going to go live in Best Buy, Target, and retail stores at the beginning of November.
So this is really a sea change for you as a company in terms of producing product. The first 2 watches were done on Kickstarter. The first Pebble, you broke all records, 10, 15 million?
10 million on Kickstarter, and then...
That was a record at the time.
Yeah.
And then the last one...
This year, we launched Pebble Time on Kickstarter and raised $20 million.
And that was a record?
Yes, new record. I think for us, the idea of going on Kickstarter has been an incredibly important part of how we built our community. When we first started talking about smartwatches publicly back in 2008, no one really gave a shit. It was just completely a non-starter. It wasn't part of the conversation at the time. Remember that in 2008, I remember the stat. It was like the first year that smartphones really were selling. Nokia had the biggest market share in smartphones in 2008, just to give you an idea of where we came from. 100 million smartphones shipped in 2008 or 2009. It was incredibly small. And so when you think about an accessory for a market that was pretty small, we didn't really get that much traction. It wasn't really, I think Engadget covered us first, but that was like, it was still kind of this niche. In 2012, when we launched Pebble on Kickstarter, that's the first moment that I think we were able to tell the story about why kind of a regular person should be interested in this. At first we were in there with the geeks and the people who, like us, just really wanted something new and something incredibly cool. But when we launched on Kickstarter, we changed that conversation from it being kind of this piece of the future to being something that people could imagine wearing on their wrist and using on a regular basis. And I think the real keys that sort of accidental, like as a lot of you know, doing a startup, you can only set out with like the best of intentions. A lot of what you do is learning on route. And I think what we learned when we were talking about smartwatches for a number of years leading up to our first Kickstarter was that simplicity is the key. When you have a new piece of technology that people didn't wake up and consider buying or putting on their wrist, we had to explain in 3 quick and easy sentences why someone should be interested in buying a smartwatch. And I think we did that with our first Kickstarter. We said that it's a watch that provides you notifications on the go. It tracks your sleep, it tracks your steps, and it connects to apps that you already use on your phone, like Music or Pandora or Runkeeper or Strava. And one fourth thing, we broke the rule. We also let you download watch faces to customize the look and the feel of the watch. And that was it. Like, that was the entire pitch.
How many of these watches have shipped now? How many has Pebble shipped?
We've sold over 1 million Pebbles, yeah.
And Peter, what was your thought on when the Apple Watch came out? I see you have the Apple. I'm wearing a Fitbit. Everybody seems to have a different preference right now. What did you think would happen with the Pebble second generation when the iPhone came out? And you're using the iPhone. Are you satisfied with it? Are you love-hate with it?
Yeah, I think I've been pretty vocal about my frustrations with the Apple Watch, which I think a lot of people share, which is it's fine for notifications. Even with watchOS 2.0, the apps tend to not work especially well, so there's sort of a frustration with the limitations of the watch. My sense, and especially having written about technology and covered it for so many years, is that something like this, when it comes out, it actually tends to build overall awareness about the product. I think actually one of the toughest things, and I think Eric alluded to this, is that the watch would be something that was an accessory to the phone was not immediately obvious 7, 8, 10 years ago. If you look at some of the really early attempts at building smartwatches, like Microsoft with the Smartwatch 10, 12 years ago, they did something that was entirely independent of the phone. And it's really only as people have started to understand that a watch is something that should be attached to your phone and connected to your phone that they've really started to take off.
Eric, you had record sales in the face of the Apple Watch coming out. In fact, I think the announcement for the second Pebble Time, came right as the Apple Watch was announced or delivered?
I mean, it wasn't a coincidence. We actually intended for us to launch Pebble Time right at the time that Apple was starting to talk more about their smartwatch.
And why do you think you were still able to set a record? Is it because just a rising tides lift all boats? Everybody's interested in the category?
I think that's one angle. I think for us, it was really explaining why we have a distinct take on wearables. I think Apple and Google have explained their stories pretty openly. Apple is making a luxury, high fashion, high polish watch that's positioned kind of in the $350. I mean, it starts at $350, so it's an expensive watch to begin with. I think they've described a future that has a lot of the elements of the smartphone kind of reimagined or manifested on the watch, on the wrist. I think our attitude is fairly different. We're saying that your phone is great. I love my phone. I've got a great phone, and it sits in my pocket the vast majority of the time. I take it out to do things like browse maps and navigate the web or respond to emails. The watch is useful for a couple key moments during your day, but it's meant to be there almost as like a peace of mind, a security blanket, a connection to the important things that are happening on your phone, not a replacement for your phone. And I think we've seen that from the millions of people that use Pebble today, just in terms of what apps they use and what functions they use on the watch. 90% of people use Pebble for notifications. Yeah. That's the vast majority of people. That's
is that the killer app for these? Is just getting notifications without being rude? And is it rude now to look at your watch at a notification? Because that seems to be the little chime from the Apple Watch is starting to, like you hear it go off, and then I just count the seconds before I see somebody go, yeah, that's yeah. And it almost feels like that's rude.
Yeah.
What's the social
norm now of checking?
I mean, my perspective on this is pretty simple. I think that technology enables people to live their lives a little bit better. I'm optimistic on the grand value of technology on our bodies and in our lives. And I think that some people love being distracted by their phone. There's no way that we can beat around the bush and say that it's not awesome to browse through Instagram and to catch up on what people are doing, or even to distract yourself. I thought a couple years ago when I got my first smartphone and I had a 3G connection, I realized we're never going to be bored again. There's no
boredom. The most interesting thing in the world will be there.
Is always within a couple swipes. So I don't think that the phone is going away, and I don't think that we're ever going to ignore that. But the social norm of being able to check your watch and to see the watch has always been kind of this thing that provides you with a little bit of information at a glance.
Hey everybody, let me take a moment to tell you about PagerDuty. If you don't know what PagerDuty is, it's the thing that developers hate most in their lives. It's when they are at their kids' soccer game or recital. It's when they're at the movies. It's when they're at the gym, they're running a half marathon, and the pager goes off and something's wrong with the servers. Now, there is a solution for this. One, you got to build great systems that are redundant, of course, but still somebody needs to be on call because it's not always your fault. Sometimes some fiber optic line goes down or your hosting company screws up or hardware gets borked. Anything can happen, you know that. And being on call is really brutal because you get these constant alerts, and PagerDuty aggregates all of those monitoring tools. You have all these different monitoring tools. It puts it all into one place, and it pays for itself by keeping developers happy because it sends only the alerts that are necessary to only the people who are on duty, and you can roll. And you don't want to roll your own monitoring system like this. You want to use a professional system like PagerDuty. They've done all the work. It would take you literally years of development time to build this awesome system they've built, and consumers love the apps. They have iOS and Android apps because a lot of your developers are going to be on Android, obviously. And this lets them be on the go and receive alerts. And all the top PagerDuty clients are obvious. Atlassian with HipChat, Pinterest, New Relic, Airbnb, Panasonic, Slack, Path. All these great companies use PagerDuty because they want to keep their developers happy and make sure that their systems are up and running. In fact, Chartbeat, which is one of the companies I've invested in, uses PagerDuty, and PagerDuty gives Chartbeat one central place to send critical alerts. We now have a simple, easy process for on-call scheduling, says Justin Lintz, who is the senior operations engineer at Chartbeat. So here's your call to action, everybody. Go ahead and sign up for a 14-day trial at pagerduty.com/twist. Pagerduty.com/twist. Get a free t-shirt when you sign up for your first alert. And thank you so much to our friends at PagerDuty, because they build a great product that keeps developers engaged and loving their jobs. Thanks again at PagerDuty. Let's get back to this amazing episode.
Kind of related to that, I mean, could you talk a little bit about how you tried to change the user interface when you introduced the Pebble Time?
Yeah, so we had learned a lot from our customers and from our users over the first generation of Pebble. We realized that notifications were key. We realized that people weren't starting to use Pebble for like 5 minutes at a time. They weren't going to kind of zone in and just spend their whole time interacting with their watch. People wanted to be able to get a little bit of information about their day and then get back to living their life. When we designed our new interface that we launched with Pebble Time, it's called Timeline. It's really a way to organize your life and understand what's happening throughout the day without having to go into apps, without having to go into your calendar app, without having to go into your weather app, without having to go into your traffic app. You can see what's coming up chronologically laid out on a timeline. And that was different for us because we had been beating down the door of saying, developers build apps, what are the different ways that you can imagine the functionalities of your smartphone overlaid on top of the wrist? And we realized that, we can't just copy and paste the exact same interactions and the exact same kind of modal interfaces that you see on the phone onto the wrist. We needed something new.
Well, let's talk about apps and functionality. Obviously, the number one thing people are using this for, and I actually wonder if it's for telling time or for getting messages. What is the number one use case right now? Is it getting
telling time is
telling time is still up there?
Beyond what people say. I mean, like people use their watch to tell what time it is.
So SMS
notifications,
yeah.
Responding to notifications is coming up. We introduced a microphone with Pebble Time, and all our new products have microphones. You can respond to notifications on iOS. We're increasing the amount of apps that you'll be able to respond to.
Have you done that, Peter? Have you started responding and talking into your Apple Watch?
I haven't done any of the voice.
How many people have a smartwatch, an Apple Watch, a Pebble, any of them? Raise it nice and high. It looks like this is a very tech-savvy one. It's only half. How many people bought the iWatch but don't find themselves using it? I'm in this group. That's really interesting. It's, maybe a third of the people who bought the iWatch are not using it. If you leave it behind, do you go back and get it?
No, but I would my phone, obviously.
Obviously, with your phone, you do.
And that's actually the biggest thing that we've seen, that like when technology crosses into that I gotta go home to pick it up phase, that changes the game. That's our goal.
Yeah. So is there a killer app that you use, Peter, that you just think is really a look into the future on the Apple Watch or any other watch?
It's still notifications. And I actually think that I think to Eric's point that being able to integrate a flow of notifications into your wrist, to be able to quickly glance, get the information you need, be able to make a decision whether you need to take action or not, rather than having to pull out the phone, more fully interrupt what you're doing. I think, to me, that is actually tremendously valuable. There are a handful of apps that I do really enjoy on the Apple Watch. For example, something like Dark Sky for weather, and being able to get a notification around when there's going to be rain or something like that is actually pretty useful.
So there's another angle that we've seen. So we've had the benefit of having over 1 million users on our platform, and we use analytics and we understand what people are doing on a regular basis, and we see what's coming up next. And notifications has definitely been the first thing that people use when they put a smartwatch on their wrist. But it's not the only thing. There's a couple angles that we've seen smartwatches becoming more and more useful in people's lives. One of them is providing a sixth sense around the world. There's a ton of inputs that we have. You mentioned weather and dark sky. There's health and there's wellness and there's activity tracking and sleep tracking and step tracking. But there's a couple other things that smartwatches are beginning to do that just supplement our lives in a way that your phone may do today, but just is different when it's physically on your body. So for example, there's a group of people that are using Pebble to to track their, if you don't mind pulling up
let's pull up the deck.
The deck again. To track their bodily kind of, their state of their body. And so for normal people, we can manage our insulin levels internally. But for people who suffer from diabetes, they need to use technology to help manage something that their body should have been able to do normally. And so the current state of the art for people who suffer from diabetes is to wear a continuous blood glucose monitor on their body. They wear it on their arm or on their side, and it measures the level of insulin and glucose in their body. So what a bunch of hackers have done is actually piece together the sensor that lives on the side of their body with their Pebble. So instead of having to monitor their blood glucose levels by taking out a device after a meal and checking to see what their level is, they now have a real-time, always updating stat on their wrist that shows them, should they be dosing themselves with insulin, should they be eating something with sugar, and it basically gives them a kind of deep look into their body that's always with them, that's always on their wrist. And that's something that you could have done with your phone today. You see what it looks like to have that readout on your phone, but that still is a kind of discrete jump from having the data available in a phone to having the data available on your body, something that you can glance at all times. Now we've seen this. This was not something that we intended, and it's not something that we necessarily promote our product to do. But it plays to the fact that Pebble is an open platform. That we started off by launching the product on Kickstarter. We were only 3 people at the company, and we had a little bit of an idea of what Pebble would be great for. But because we made it an open platform, and we basically left the back door open, and we let people hack and build on top of Pebble, it's really taken on a bunch of functionality that we could have never started out to really do. Now, this is useful for people who monitor their own diabetes, but it turned out to be also incredibly useful for families of people who have a young child who suffer from diabetes. Now, for someone who's 5 or 6, you may start using this technology to monitor your blood glucose, but you don't necessarily know how often to dose yourself with insulin. So this is an Instagram of a family who all wear Pebbles to track one of the younger children in their family's diabetes. And it means that it's not just, with this technology, you're not just looking into your own body, but you're also kind of connecting to in this case, connecting to your family and better understanding kind of the health and the state of your family. And it's incredible. It's definitely, I think, one of the core use cases of smartwatches in the future will be to complement our own physical bodies and help us understand ourselves a little bit better.
What other apps are you guys working on, or functionality? I know you don't like the word apps, but the thing that's most disappointing to me about the Apple Watch right now, and the reason I don't really wear it, is I found I got too many notifications. So a lot of notifications on your smartphone, not a big deal. You have a big screen, but a lot of them on your wrist is way too much. And I haven't figured out how to manage that or mitigate against a flood of them.
There's over 10,000 apps and watch faces available for Pebble today on the Pebble App Store. The vast majority are watch faces.
Yeah.
Watch faces turned out to be this incredibly cool, very creative community of people who wanted to create designs, and they're primarily kind of like interesting ways of displaying time that just wasn't possible before. In the same way that you used to customize the home screen of your phone or download a different ringtone, people are creating watch faces that they can then download from the App Store and just have on their wrist. And it's you see kind of trends take off and explode. A very popular watch face for Pebble was Domo, which is the character that's kind of like crazy big on the internet. And it's exciting. I think it's a way for people to express themselves that just wasn't available 5 years ago.
And how hard is it to create a watch face? Like I know that you've been very supportive of the developer community and tried to lower the bar for people to be able to create things.
There's 2 ways. There's a couple different ways to make a watch face. The simplest one is to use a watch face generator that a member of our community actually created. You upload a photo of your favorite sports team, your car, your family, your cat, and you can create a watch face pretty quickly. There's a lot of people who are building more interesting and kind of more interactive watch faces. You can write one in JavaScript. You can write one in C. There's a couple different ways that you can build a watch face for Pebble.
What other apps? besides faces? Are people, or do you think in the future are going to become bigger? Like what is the technology not allowing for now that perhaps it will in another 3, 4, 5 years?
So the vision that we have for smartwatches is pretty simple. We think that in the future, every single watch will be smart. And every single thing that you wear on your body will begin to get a little bit smarter. And in the same way that phones started out as a means of communication, we would phone someone up, it moved to text messaging. All of a sudden, when they got smart, when you had this big screen and you were able to actually run software on your phone, it changed the game from being just a device that was useful for communication to something that took on the form of all these different use cases and activities that you would do throughout the day. We see the same thing happening with smartwatches. It starts out as this communication device. People want to put it on their wrist and begin to receive notifications or stay in touch with people that matter in their lives. And after it gets on their wrist, they start to realize that now that they have this device that can run software, it can really take on a whole bunch of different forms. The next thing that people do on a smartwatch is activity and sleep tracking. This is a really useful thing that people do today on their phone. I mean, people go for a run with their phone. But
I found that it's pretty profound once you understand your steps and your sleep patterns. You make change. How many people here have made changes to their sleep habits due to a device like a wearable? That's at least 10% of the audience has made a change. I've made a ton of changes to my sleeping.
And I think it goes to the fact that this is a device that's on you for all intents and purposes. It's the only device that people wear on their body. 20% of Pebble users wear it 24/7. They wear it all the time. And that's pretty much the first thing that people look at when they wake up, and it's the last thing that they look at when they go to sleep.
Are we going to get to the point where, and I'll open this up to you, Peter, is I feel like there are times when I could leave the house without my phone if I could take a call on my watch, respond to an email, call an Uber. It's pretty much all I need to do when I'm out. Check Twitter. But it seems like, I guess, a 4G LTE connection is going to eat a lot. You're going to have a service plan. And I guess Samsung had one watch that did this.
There are a handful of LTE-enabled smartwatches out there. The battery life, as you'd expect, is pretty miserable. And
like what, 3, 4, 5 hours?
I think if you're lucky. I mean, you're just dealing with basic physics. With the size of a battery you're able to put in there and still have a device that people are going to want to wear. And I do think battery life is one of the biggest issues around this, where people don't want to necessarily have something that they have to charge all the time. I mean, I've been pretty good at charging my watch every day, but if I forget, it certainly means...
It's game over.
It means that I'm not going to get through the whole day, a whole second day.
You're not going to get through a second day. With the Pebble, you're going to last 5, 6, 7 days, right?
Yeah, we've seen a couple different trends in terms of battery life. There's some people that choose to just go all 7 days and basically charge once a week. There's a couple people that charge every single night, but it's very rare. Less than 1% of Pebble users charge their watch every single evening.
Yeah, I mean, definitely iWatch people have to do it at least once a day, if not twice.
You have to, yeah.
So one of the things that we've actually done is...
It was nice of them to make a different connector too, right? Like,
we've... And that kind of ties back to the connector thing and how often people have to charge it, tie into how much are we going to force people to conform their lives around this technology versus the technology actually getting integrated into your existing life and not forcing you to change. That's something we think about.
Maybe you could talk a little bit about the screen technology that you chose for the Pebble Time and the Pebble Time.
Sure, and so this kind of goes back to some of the decisions that we've made around our architecture. Like what are the things that we hold to be true when we make a smartwatch that may be different from some of the other people that are building smartwatches like Apple or Google. So we've taken the track of making something that's appropriate for the wrist as a always-on, always-present device. We've chosen to use an e-paper screen, which means that the screen is always on. It's great during, when you're outside, when you're running under direct sunlight. The screen doesn't get washed out like a cell phone screen would. It actually gets brighter and stronger. And it also means that it's useful as a watch that you can just glance at and see what time it is without having to make an exaggerated motion to get the backlight to engage. Yeah. And that's one of the things. The other benefit of using an e-paper screen has been battery life. So even though the screen is on, Pebble Time Steel has a battery life that ranges all the way up to 10 days. With Pebble Time Round, we've actually worked extremely hard to build such a small and kind of tiny watch. We've had to adjust the battery life. It has a battery life of up to 2 days, which means that you can still get through an actual 2 days rather than just 1 day. But we did something else. So as we noticed kind of over the last year how people charge their devices, and this is applicable not just to watches, but also to all the smart wearables that people are using, like Fitbits and other sensors that they have in their body. The charging tendency has really been an annoyance to people. Like if it's not something that people can get into a routine of charging with, it becomes an annoyance when the device dies. So we built fast charging into our most recent watch, into Pebble Time Round, that lets you get an entire 24 hours worth of usage with just a 15-minute charge. And that's been something that we've realized is a way of kind of getting around this.
When do you think we're going to have like a 4G connection in these watches realistically that would last?
I mean,
a day?
there's been a couple watches that have tried this.
When it would last a day, though, because I think if you could get a 4G connection there and it lasted a day,
Well, here's my perspective.
I would be really using it a lot.
I actually don't think it has to last a whole day. So you have your phone on you for the vast majority of the day.
No, the whole day.
The whole day. There's going to be a couple moments in your life when your phone's dead. That's a primary use case for kind of a connected smartwatch, or when you go for a run, or when you happen to leave your phone charging on your desk and you run out for a moment. I think there's a couple of moments through the day that an always connected smartwatch may be useful. And we've actually brought out some technology this year that's on the way to enabling that. So with Pebble Time, we actually introduced the very first accessory port on a smartwatch ever. So there's a new port on the back of all Pebble watches that enable hardware vendors, accessory makers, to build accessories.
Yeah, somebody made a battery watch band, right?
They make a battery strap. There's also people working on a GPS watch strap, a heart rate strap, and eventually we imagine that people will be building straps that enable 3G or 4G connectivity without your phone. But I think the answer to the battery problem is not that you're going to use this 24/7 and it's going to be your only connection to the internet.
No, that's kind of what I want, actually.
It's going to supplement it. It's going to... Oh, you want the 24/7?
I think that would be like really neat if you were able to just get enough accomplished with this that you didn't have to carry the smartphone.
But you love your phone.
I think it's so frustrating. I don't see who would.
Really?
You're not going to do
I would
that.
love to be able to go out for the evening without it.
But that's exactly what I'm saying, that it's a couple
6
hours
hours,
per day.
yeah.
It's not the whole day. It's not 24/7
enough.
for sure.
All right, listen. Is there anything you wanted to show on the watch? Any new apps or something? We can bring over the over-the-shoulder camera.
Yeah, it'd be cool.
Bring over the over-shoulder camera if we can, and we'll take a look.
So this is the new, let's see if we can get it.
Perfect. There it is.
Are we focused in there? So this is the new Pebble Time Round. It's incredibly thin. It's 7.5 millimeters thin, but it still has all the great things that Pebble users have kind of become used to. It's got our new timeline feature, which shows you what's coming up next during the day at a glance. With just 1 or 2 clicks, you can see what's coming up next in your schedule. It's got the same apps like step tracking, sleep tracking, activity tracking. This is one of my favorite apps. It's a Caltrain app. It shows you the next Caltrain for people who are dealing with some of the
Are
craziness
you making
that's
these
happening.
apps, or are they stock on the phone? Or are you having? Are these all third-party developers?
This is built by actually someone who works at Pebble, but there's a couple different third-party apps that I've got as well. Music control, that's pretty standard. This is a kind of fun one. This is it's called FitCat. It's a Tamagotchi like app that you maintain a cat throughout the week. Watch faces have turned into this, like I said before, kind of this cool community of people who are building interesting looks and designs. I'll try changing. This is the one that I really love on the round form factor. It's sorry to get the light.
Yeah, just hold it steady. He'll change it. Yeah.
If
Perfect,
anyone
yeah.
played GoldenEye in the 90s, this is the health view from GoldenEye. And of course, there's a 9-cat app for Pebble as well.
Beautiful.
We think about Pebble as something that's useful during the day, but also something that causes you to, smile when you look down at it. It's a piece of technology that has a bit of attitude, has a bit of fun.
All right. Well, continued success with Pebble. Let's hear it for Eric and
Cool.
Peter. Big round of applause. Hey everybody, let me stop for a moment, this amazing episode, and tell you about the Walker Corporate Law Group. Yes, they are a boutique law firm that specializes in the representation of entrepreneurs and startups. And Scott Walker is the founder of that company, and he is a personal friend of mine, and he does a great job working with startups. I have literally introduced him to dozens, maybe hundreds now, of startups, and they all rave about the services of the Walker Corporate Law Group because their lawyers have decades of experience. You're not going to get junior associates who are getting on-the-job training with your startup. No. They're going to help you with mergers and acquisitions, licensing, terms of service, privacy policies, formation, all this kind of stuff, fundraising, and they're really great at it. And they do fixed fees. They don't want to surprise people with crazy bills. They think that billable hours can reward inefficiency, so they'll just be fair with you. And that's what I love about them, because if you're a startup, you don't want to get that sticker shock and get a huge bill. Make sure you use the Walker Corporate Law Group, and you can do that by calling Scott Walker at 415-979-9998. 415-979-9998. You can email him, Scott at walkercorporatelaw.com, or you can visit walkercorporatelaw.com as well. Scott at walkercorporatelaw.com, and let Scott Ed Walker on Twitter know, at Scott Ed Walker, know that you watch the program and you appreciate him supporting independent media like This Week in Startups. One of my oldest advertisers, one of my oldest friends in the industry, just a great guy, a total mensch, and he really takes care of the startups who work with him. Thank you, Scott Walker, for supporting This Week in Startups. Bye-bye. Okay, let's get back to this program. Come on. Okay, everybody. So we're going to talk a little bit about the future of transportation. With me again, Peter Rojas, the founder of Gizmodo, Engadget, and then working at AOL's Venture and New Products Group, and now working at BetaWorks. Yep. What's your job at BetaWorks? You're writing checks?
I'm doing seed stage investing for BetaWorks, so anybody who wants to talk to me, come and find me.
Seed stage means $250,000 check, first check?
Yeah, $100,000 to $500,000 checks, and we like to be first money in.
Me too. All right, let's do some deals. Me and you, Peter, let's do it.
All right.
It's pretty crazy. We started as bloggers, and now we're both investors.
It is kind of funny, the journey that we've been on.
Exactly. It's like we used to go try to find money and beg people, can you give us some money to invest in our company? And then now we're, 10 years later, working together as angel investors. Crazy. The world is nuts. Okay, hey, let's bring up our next guests, Skully and Automatic. Now, Skully is really a fascinating device. Obviously, riding motorcycles is super dangerous. You ever ride a motorcycle, Peter?
I have not, actually.
Vespa?
Yeah, I've been on a scooter, yeah.
I rode a motorcycle for like a year, and my mom would wait on the door to the brownstone in Brooklyn. When I left, I come back 3 hours later, she'd still be on the steps.
Yep.
And that's when I stopped. But then I drove a Vespa for a long time. Well, welcome to Launch Mobile.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah. And so tell us, what have you built, Marcus?
So what you're looking at here is essentially, this is a fighter pilot helmet for motorcyclists. And so what this has is a heads-up display. It's an augmented reality motorcycle helmet.
Let's turn it the other.
And so what it does is it renders a 180-degree viewing angle rear view camera, and it shows that in the heads-up display here. And the heads-up display is focused at infinity, which is really important because the rider can check the display and look back out at the horizon and back at the display again, and there's no delay. There's no delay in reaction time.
Right, and that's this little projector here.
Exactly.
It's similar to the projector from Google Glass.
Right.
What is that technology called?
Well, this is what the military calls a reticle.
A reticle.
Yeah, but it leverages a polarizing beam splitter, which is just a term they use in optics for how they split the beam so that you can both look through the image as well as see the image. But the important feature that Skully has is because it's focused at infinity, when you're looking far away, the image looks far away, and when you're looking at something up close, the image looks up close, so it's always in focus.
Let's play the video, because the video really shows it super well. And I wore it backstage, and I want to wear it every day. I want this, like eyes in the back of your head, and that's the camera right here, correct?
Correct.
So there's a little camera right there. We'll show that in a minute. But here's the product. This is the product video, and I want to see the actual video of the person riding, because that's really the thing that's super, super compelling, is when you actually see somebody riding. There you go. So on the bottom right here, you see your speed. You can see navigation and turns. Where is it getting that information from, the speed and the navigation information?
So it connects with an iPhone or an Android phone, and what it does is it takes that data, that detail, so it's turn-by-turn navigation. Also, it has telemetry, so it can draw telemetry from the bike, and we'll talk about that a little bit later with respect to our SDK. And it also shows your speed, so it uses GPS-derived speed, and it puts that in the heads-up display. And why that's important is because that's
You want to be able to outrun cops.
I would never say that on
No.
TV.
But bikers do this. This is a unique thing for bikers. They do outrun cops pretty easily.
That's because their bikes are a lot faster than the cars, I would suppose.
It is part of biker culture. Everybody's got a story about that. You're part of this biker culture, yeah?
I can't speak to that, unfortunately, Jason.
Yes, okay. No first-hand knowledge, but
Right. I've heard stories. Friends have told me.
yeah. How long you been biking for?
About 6 years.
You ever drop the bike? You ever?
Everybody's got their story of going down, for sure. Mine was what actually led to the idea for Skully. So I was on my motorcycle in Barcelona. I looked to my right to read a street sign, and because I was doing that, I hadn't noticed that this little red smart car in front of me had actually slammed on the brakes. And so by the time I looked forward and noticed it, I was already smashing into the back of it.
Wow. What were you going, 20, 30 miles an hour?
It was probably less than that, but it definitely felt like 90 miles an hour. It really
You wrecked the bike?
totaled the bike, and what ended up happening is a few months later I had this dream that I was back on the motorcycle that day. It was an exact flashback dream, but the difference was that I had these GPS maps and they were floating out in front of me like a hologram. And I sat up in bed and I realized like that would have prevented my accident. I wouldn't have been looking around it for the street sign. I would have been focused on the road ahead. And so I went online to try to buy it, and like many founders in this room have probably had this experience, it didn't exist, and I couldn't believe it. And I just wasn't willing to accept that, so I decided to start building it.
And so, does the helmet pass any data back to the phone, or is that something that you're thinking about?
So yeah, what it does is it has a smartphone companion app, and it relays information back and forth to the phone, and that's really important because we think about the sort of device that we've created as sort of a three-pronged component of a system. So there's the helmet, there's the motorcycle, and the app. And there's also the surrounding vehicles. And so what we're working on is technology that can broadcast the relative position of the rider to other intelligent vehicles in the environment that will notify and make these other vehicles aware that a rider is there. And Skully's solving two big problems there. One is the other driver's awareness of the rider, and one is the rider's awareness of their surroundings. So the 180-degree blind spot camera that's shown in the heads-up display helps the rider perceive their environment. So you have kind of a double attack on this issue with not having enough situational awareness in this.
Is there a standard for that? Because obviously planes have their, I think it's called ATAP or something, where planes, when they get close to each other, have a system to alert each other, hey, there's somebody getting really close to you. But does that exist as a standard for cars yet?
There isn't a standard per se, although the NHTSA is soon going to be mandating 802.11p to broadcast the relative position of nodes in the intelligent transportation system network. And I think that's a really big step forward. But what we're seeing really in automotive, and if you look at Tesla, for instance, is a lot of sensor fusion. There's a lot of different types of, LiDAR and radar and ultrasonic sensors and cameras that are all working together to create a more intelligent or more aware transportation network.
But cars and motorcycles being able to share their positional information and data, I mean, that's going to be absolutely critical if we're going to have, tens of millions of self-driving cars on the road.
No doubt. High-resolution GPS and sensor fusion are critical for a safer transportation experience. And transportation is the most frequent, ubiquitous, and dangerous thing that we do. So it's an area that's absolutely ripe for disruption and innovation, and there's trillions of dollars at stake.
What about having LiDAR or some technology? We saw some augmented reality yesterday, so that, hey, when you're going and your eyes are off the road for a millisecond or a second, at least you could know, the smart car is 10 feet, 5 feet, or some kind of alert. Does that exist in any of motorcycling or cycling?
It doesn't at the current time. The challenge is that the environment is so dynamic and so rapidly changing, and you have riders that are lane splitting, and so you're inherently sort of in the comfort zone of other vehicles. And so that's what makes it so challenging. So that's why you have to have both approaches, increasing the awareness of the rider and then increasing the awareness of the surroundings that the rider is operating in.
This lane splitting is legal in California, most places.
Yep.
Is it advisable?
it is advisable if done correctly. So you're not supposed to do it above 30 miles an hour, that's one. But it's good for a rider to go from the back of the line at a stoplight to the front of the line, because they don't have a car that's protecting them. If somebody doesn't see them and rear ends them at a stoplight, it can be serious trouble. So being able to see that coming behind and also to be able to go to the front of the line where you're protected by the cars behind is actually safer.
Got it. But lane splitting at speed, not a good idea.
Lane splitting on the freeway, not a good idea.
Okay. Well, congratulations on the progress. Well done. Let's hear for Skully.
Thank you.
Good job. And next up, we have automatic. Why don't you come on over here?
Not plugged in, so.
And what about for scooter riders? Is that going to be a market too?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Really, really well done. What does it cost to build a product like this, to get it to market? And are you at market yet? Are you taking orders?
We're actually shipping in December, and we did about $4 million in pre-orders.
4 million in pre-orders. Was it a Kickstarter project or?
We did it on Indiegogo.
Yeah. 4 million in pre-orders. Yeah. And what does it go for? $1,000? $2,000?
It's $14.99.
That's what I figured. This is a pretty expensive device.
Yeah, there's a lot of technology in there.
What is a typical equivalent helmet cost without the technology?
So to have a helmet of this grade and quality, it's probably around $799, $800.
Okay, so it's another $700 to save your life.
Yeah.
Pretty well worth it.
Yeah.
And what will you get it down to? Will this become standard? Are you going to make your sensors available to other helmet manufacturers, or do you want to just go head-to-head compete with them?
Well, I think what our goal is to enable the entire ecosystem. So we'd like to provide technology to all the helmet makers. I think that's the best. We'll always have our brand and our product, and I think the latest and greatest will always be there. But we definitely want to enable a safer ecosystem for transportation.
Awesome. Let's hear it for Skully. Oh, yeah, what about bicycles? So you going to do bicycles too?
Maybe.
Maybe. All right. I see that smile. I know he's going to do it. All right. Now, automatic. You've been at a bunch of launch events.
Absolutely.
Did you launch at a launch event? Did you compete?
I don't think so. We launched in May 2013.
2013. But you've been at a lot of the hackathons.
Absolutely.
And participated there. This is called the ODB, right? If I remember? Old Dirty Bastard?
This is a device which plugs into a standard port. It's an adapter. Oh, yeah. So here you go.
And what is the port called? OBD?
Onboard diagnostics.
ODB.
Right? On OBD.
OBD.
So it's onboard diagnostics.
Okay, so
it's
not
a standard that the federal government mandates every car has to have that port that's sold since 1996. And so what does automatic do? Most of us have cars, and the interesting thing about them is that they are the most expensive computers we own, but at the same time, we treat them like an appliance, right? We get in them, we push a button, we drive, and we get out. And if only we were able to harness the power of those computers, the entire car ownership experience would be a lot better. And that's what automatic does, right? So it is this device which plugs into a standard port that every car sold since 1996 has. And the adapter essentially talks to the computer of the car, and then through your smartphone connects your car to the internet.
Show us what you can learn.
Exactly. And so this is the automatic application. And what you're seeing on screen is this. All of the trips that I've taken, and right at the top, you get feedback in terms of how you've been doing, right? How much have you driven? How much money do you spend on your car? And you even get that feedback on a score, which tells you how you can be efficient, right? A good score is, it means that you're being a good, efficient driver. You can even get personalized feedback as you're driving. And if I just go ahead and tap on any trip, this was my drive from our office to this venue, and you can get a lot of information about exactly how I've driven. For some people, it's very important to track whether it's a personal trip or a business trip, and that's something that you can do in the application. Also,
I notice it says under 70 miles per hour. Is that for your teenager mode?
So this is the efficiency mode, where some people are very interested. You're spending $3,000 a year on gas, right? So just small changes in style of driving can help you save a lot of money.
Yep.
And that's what we can point out if that's what you're interested in. And recently what we also did was that we went ahead and opened up the entire platform, and anybody can come and build applications for your car now.
Got it.
And so imagine if every car out there had an API, right? If anybody could build applications on your phone that could stream live data from your car and do cool things with it, right?
Okay, so automatic through the OBD.
Yep.
Sends the data to the cloud.
Yep.
If I'm an app developer, I can make an app that then pulls that data from the cloud and into my app.
Exactly.
And I don't have to pay you anything.
You don't have to. And so that's one type of application you can build. There's also another type where applications can stream data directly from the device into the app at very high frequency. And we can actually play a video which will show you an example of such an application.
Okay, let's play the video, yeah.
So this app, what it does is it essentially replaces a GoPro camera. And so I just recorded a video yesterday right around our office, but when you're driving on a track, for example, imagine having...
Kind of ran the stop sign there, just to be clear.
So there's throttle and RPM, and all of this is streaming live from the car, and you get speed.
And the camera is from my dash cam, my iPhone on the camera.
From your phone, you just mount it, and then you can get all of that information from your car right in your phone now.
But you didn't make this, one of
our developers did, right?
Wow,
and,
so this is better than your app.
So you could say that, and so the whole point of the developer platform is that there are many such applications. Now, if you switch to,
So your business is then to get people to buy this device, and you're totally fine with app developers making more compelling experiences than even your app.
What we think of at the end of the day is that...
What does this cost?
If we switch to... This costs $99.
That's it, $99, pretty cheap.
We think of what we have as an app store for your car.
Is there any subscription cost, by the way?
No, there isn't.
So I don't have to pay $10 a month or $10 a year?
Nothing like that.
Got it.
And now you have an app store for your car, right? And one interesting use case is, I just talked about how a lot of people have to drive for business, right? And it's a painful process to keep track of that manually.
Brilliant.
It just puts it into your expense management system, without any problem. So let me just zoom in. Okay. So this was, again, my drive from work to this venue this morning. All I have to go is and do expense, boom. It's in Expensify, everything taken care of, right? And I didn't have to do anything manually. And it integrates with if this, then that, which a lot of you might be familiar with.
I love if this, then that.
Yeah. Now you can take all the information from your car, and it can talk to everything else in your life,
if
right?
car leaves San Francisco, send me a text message. If car goes over 75 miles an hour, send a text message to myself, my wife, and my daughter, and say, the car is currently driving 76 miles per hour. What the fuck is going on here?
You could do things like that.
And then my wife says, I'm sorry.
So we actually have a very good application for parents and teens, which isn't about spying and actually helps them become better drivers, but that's a whole other conversation.
Well, I mean, listen, it was like we were talking with Janice before, with great power comes great responsibility. If you're going to drive a couple of $1,000-pound device at the age of 16 or 17 years old, you're going to drive it in the area you're supposed to drive it and at the speed you're supposed to drive it.
Yep. And so what I'm trying to get at is what Automatic ultimately does is it takes this rich, powerful computer that isn't connected, and it opens up all of that data and allows anybody to use it easily and to build rich, compelling experiences around that.
Can you put this in a Tesla too?
So the Tesla is an EV, and we don't support electric vehicles right now. And so the OBD port essentially doesn't even expose. It's there, but it doesn't expose the data that we need for all of this to work because they're not mandated by that requirement, right? So there's no emissions data. There's nothing really to read.
No RPMs. It's just kilowatts being used or whatever.
Exactly. So it's all of that information which, if you look at the kinds of applications and the data that we expose, you don't have a lot of that data with EVs at all. So maybe ultimately at some point, but given the size of the market, we are now focused on gasoline cars.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. I mean, I think we've seen over and over again, I think it's actually one of the great themes of this event has been when you take in data and make it accessible, you can really create amazing experiences or really gain a tremendous amount of knowledge, which then you can use to impact the way that you do things. And I love this. I mean, just seeing the expense tool alone, I mean, I see that as something that, I mean, actually would solve a specific problem that I have right now.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful. And then what about you guys, it would seem, how many of these in San Francisco ballpark do you have on the road? Is it thousands or tens of thousands?
It's definitely in the many thousands in San Francisco, and our drivers drive many millions of miles every single day, right? And so all of that data is flowing into the back end.
It would seem to me that you have even better, richer data than Waze, which sold for $1 billion. Mm-hmm. Are you going to release a Waze competitor type app?
So not right now. You're right that we have a tremendous amount of data that's flowing into the back end.
You would have better data though, because you know the RPMs and the precise speed of the car.
So we know when you're pushing on the brake, on the throttle, and we have a very granular amount of data because we are connected directly to the car, and so there's a huge amount of value there. And right now, our focus is on solving real consumer problems, and that's where our attention is focused. And we think Waze is doing a good job, and they're big, and we don't want to go and compete in an area where we're the upstart. Right?
What about fleets? The Ubers and the Lyfts and the Instacarts and people, I guess Sprig would be another one, asking their drivers to put this in the car to get more data.
So great question. So we have a fleet application on our platform.
Got it.
It's a very rich application which does a whole lot of stuff. If you think about any given small fleet, just they need to be able to track what's happening in it, when do I service it, all sorts of different things. And there is an application for that too on the platform, and that's the power of just opening up all the data in your car is you can now go ahead and build very rich
You can see in real time where everybody is.
Exactly, it's a map, right? You have a map and you can see in real time where all the cars are moving, and we're essentially hacking connectivity in a car, right? So we are taking this approach of adding an aftermarket device, and now we have access to all of this amazing, rich information in the car, and you can
This
go
is
build all
a
these
really
apps.
good segue into the on-demand segment, which we're about to go directly into. But there is a third-party company that's helping people create Uber-like and Sprig-like companies. You know this company? What's the name of it? It's like a white label.
Oh yeah, there are a few of them actually.
Like white label delivery service. Do
Yep.
they use your technology or just the smartphone?
So I think they might be using just the smartphone, or maybe they might have some other device. We are not working
Yeah.
with them yet, but there are a few companies which are doing that.
Because really, if you look at what you're doing with this fleet management, it's really a step removed from what is being delivered, right? And so this, to me, if Uber we had Emil Michaels on the stage just 2 days ago, if all the Ubers had this in it, man, this could really give them much more granular data. What's the
Absolutely.
relationship with Uber like? Have you tried to sell Uber or Lyft on having these? And
So-
what was their response?
Well, we talked to them, and the data is very interesting from the perspective of understanding how the drivers are doing, understanding how safe they are, and you can add an entirely new level of confidence other than the rating about how good a driver that person actually is, right? Because
right.
you have very granular data about how they're actually driving.
If they're
in the
speeding,
city.
if they're... Yeah.
All of that. And at the same point, it's very useful to the driver because they get to know how much am I actually spending, because it's pretty opaque to them right now. But it's important for them to understand, when I drive, it's not just the money that I make, but how much do I spend making that money,
Yeah, sure,
right? How
of
much do I spend on gas and all of the other
What's
stuff.
what's the insurance application here? Because the insurance companies, I believe, are putting these on people's cars. Are they using your technology to do it, or are they just doing it themselves?
So, that's a fantastic question because we have a number of very well-known insurance companies that are working with us, and the insurance companies are realizing that the standard model of asking their customers, hey, you give me data, I'm going to look at it, and I might give you a discount, is not really the right value proposition that they want to position themselves with to their customers, right? And so when they work with us, they get to first deliver value in a wide variety of ways, and then the discount and them looking at the data, that's just one piece of it, right? And so a number of insurance companies are already giving out automatic to their customers in order to enable this kind of an experience. We even have features like crash alert, like OnStar, right? There's a call center in the back end. It's a very high-touch service that's obviously very relevant to insurance companies.
Awesome.
So they're turning out to be great partners and distributing automatic to their customers.
Awesome.
So could you suggest to someone if they were a poor driver that they needed to improve their skills?
Absolutely. That's part of what the app already
I mean, I guess
does.
you do it in a tactful way, right?
Exactly.
Sure
So
they're a poor
what we
driver.
try and do now is that we point out hard brakes, hard accelerations,
Yeah.
when you're speeding, and there's even audio feedback as you're driving. And as I've learned, some people are very receptive to it, some
Yeah.
people hate it.
Could you
right?
gamify it in a way where you would sort of, if your goal was efficiency or to be a safer driver, to sort of improve your score over time or get points or something like
Absolutely, and we do that for the teen driving application. So there, if you look at the kinds of skills that teenagers need to become better drivers, and if you do the research around what is recommended, it's all about drive for X number of hours at night, or drive for Y number of hours on the highway, and practice doing that. And those are the aspects we can totally gamify here, because we know when you're driving on the highway, we know when you drive at night, and so we gamify that and give them badges and take them through that process of, you unlock this badge, that's how you gradually become that better driver, and we absolutely do that.
Awesome. Let's hear it for Thijo.
Yep.
Welcome back to the stage, and
you.
congratulations on the massive progress. It's amazing. All right, next up is Luxe, and we're going to talk about the future of on-demand. I'm going to ask Janice to come out as well. Peter, stick around with us, because you've always got so much to add. And let's bring out Luxe. And while Luxe is getting set up, Can we bring up Navdi? I wanted to show that video because Peter had brought up Navdi. And Navdi is,
I thought this was pretty cool.
Yeah, Navdi is just an amazing product. Let's show Navdi for a second. Peter, Bryce, if you can, if you have the Navdi video.
Here.
Do we have
Here
it?
we go. I hear it. Well, this is Luxe. Great. Maybe we can show the Navdi video while we're getting Luxe ready. All right, let's show Luxe. Cue the Navdi video, Bryce, and we'll show that in a minute. But let's just go with Luxe now. Oh, no, we have Navdi ready. Boom. So show Navdi. Okay. Boom. So Peter, tell us what we're seeing here.
So this is a heads-up display for the car, and the idea is you connect it to your smartphone, and then you can get alerts. If you have text messages, it actually comes up. Hopefully they'll show an example of it. I think they're trying to show the problem, which is someone trying to multitask and work on
this is the sandwich video guy.
This is
he
Adam,
makes all the Kickstarter videos.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
So the device, and you pop it onto your dashboard like that, and it actually now if you can do your not just your speed and acceleration, but you can do messages, you can do navigation, all this stuff. So I thought it was a pretty cool example of how you could add this to your car and not have to take your eyes off the road and still interact with your phone.
It's sort of like the Skully, but for regular cars.
Yeah.
This technology's been around for so long. I don't know why it's not required for every vehicle. Because I had a Corvette, I don't know, 7 years ago, the C6, and it projected your speed and what gear you were in, and the G-force, which was really fun when you're coming off an exit. You could see the G-force that you were pulling, but this looks even better.
Yeah, it's amazing how these devices being adjuncts to the smartphone has really made them take off. They can offboard a lot of the intelligence to
it makes it
a device that everybody has in their pocket.
All right, let's take a look at Luxe. Now, Luxe is a very cool app. I've actually used it over 100 times in the city. Although I have some issues with it now, mainly the price. But let's welcome to the stage Curtis. Welcome. Nice to see you, Curtis.
Nice to see you.
Explain to people what you're doing with Luxe and why it's important.
Yeah, Luxe is kind of the ultimate tool for anyone who has a car. And so we do everything around valet parking, but also the ability to wash and gas your car up. So I'm running through a demo here. Let's say that for kind of demo's sake, let's say I'm coming from San Mateo, and I type in, Fort Mason, which then takes me directly here, and I can select the car that I want to use. So I have multiple cars. If it's a new car, then I can choose whether it's an automatic or a manual. So let's say I'm driving my wife's Q5, and I select this location.
Pretty baller, dude. Q5? That's a nice car.
It's my wife's.
Oh, okay. Makes sense.
I have the Volkswagen.
Got it.
Diesel?
Diesel, yeah.
So I select this location, and as this thing pops up, and so now I can choose any of these additional services while my car is being parked. So, anything from premium car wash, sure. Gas fill up, sure. And the real advantage here is that, I don't have to actually search for parking anymore, and I get to go directly to the location that I want to go to. So I've now made the selection, and I'm waiting for a valet to get matched to me.
And here, $21 is the maximum cost.
Right.
And parking in this area, I think parking in the public spots is probably about
12.
It's 12.
Yeah.
So this is a little bit more, but parking, assuming it fills up here, parking in the private lots around here would probably be,
I don't even
15
know where
or
the private
20 in
lots
this area.
Yeah.
So it really depends on the area, right? There's a certain amount of cost that we bear with each transaction. Sure. But in the financial district, where the usual cost is around 30 or 40, we're priced closer to like 25. So it's.
And how do you do that?
It's because we arbitrage kind of the parking opportunity, right? Because we decouple the supply of parking with the demand of parking. Meaning, like, you get to go to the location you want to go to, but then we park your car either a little bit further away, or we time arbitrage it, like in the financial district after 5 p.m. Tens of thousands of parking spaces open. It's for us to use. So I just got matched to my valet, Philip, and it looks like he's close by, and I'm just going to have him swipe through. And so there is my car, located right there at the pier where we're at.
You really shouldn't park in the exhibition hall, by the way. We're very clear about not parking back there.
And so my car then is going to be, you can track the car's location from this location to the parking lot, which you can see is closer to Lombard Street and Webster.
Got it.
So there's full transparency through the entire process.
Nice.
That's one of the things I like about it is, because I've used it, I was using it every day for a little bit, maybe a couple of days a week, and it's really amazing, Janice, the number of opportunities you have for looking at the cost of transportation today, because I used
Right.
Uber Pool for a full week.
Right.
It was $6 to my office and $7 back
Right.
or so. So that's what, $13. Parking at my office is $15. Luxe at my office, I think, is about $20. So many different options.
But then there are those days where you have 100% surcharge for the Uber.
Right.
And there was a day recently where I had to go to the airport and I couldn't get an Uber, and there wasn't one in the entire city at 8:30 in the morning. Right. So the transportation story is getting more and more complex, and I think that this could be an interesting component of that story.
Can you make money? Are you making money and a profit? Because that was the thing. And I'm a pretty vocal tweeter. I was tweeting with you and just tweeting publicly like, okay, I'm going to use this service until they raise the price because it's less than parking in the lot.
Right.
And the price went up a little bit. And now I have, my strategy is, if I'm going to one side of town and then I have to go to a second meeting, this is when I love Luxe. So if I go to the Battery for a meeting in the morning, but then I'm working at a WeWork on Taylor Street, I always use Luxe. But I have Luxe come around the corner, because I don't want to make the valet guys feel bad. It really makes them feel bad. When the Luxe guy comes to the valet, they're like, there's a whole thing where like, oh, you don't like us parking your car? You're like the Luxe guy. And I try to explain to them, like, I'm just doing it because you'll bring the car anywhere in the city.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the best feature.
It is.
So then they come.
So what about a couple other use cases? So I live in Noe Valley, right?
Yep.
And we don't have a garage in our house because we would have had to pay like, I don't know, $1.5 million more for that. Can I have a bad parking day and be circling the block and getting really frustrated and angry, and can I just go, Luxe, and then you'll meet me at my house and I'll get out and you'll park my car somewhere on the street? Or is it always at a lot?
Yeah, it's always on the lot.
Okay.
So it's safe and secure.
And so then the next morning I could go bring it to me, but I'm paying you overnight.
Right.
Is that right?
Yeah, the great thing too is we released this thing called scheduled returns. So the perfect example, you go like this. And going back to this, you could pick a different location. So let's say we're going a little bit further out, not at Fort Mason, because I had lunch down here. And I scheduled a return. You can even make it for tomorrow or some other day. But let's say we want it now.
Do people really let you hold the car for 3 or 4 days? Is that happening?
Yeah.
What do you charge for every day if you're doing a multi-day?
It depends on the location.
Yeah.
Overnight parking is usually $15.
Got it.
So let's say I want my car back now, and right now they're trying to find me a valet who's going to then pick up my car.
How many people have tried Luxe before? I wonder. Has anybody tried Luxe here or one of the other services? Good. Yeah, it looks like about 10%, 5% maybe. And what neighborhoods are you servicing now? Because it does seem like the value of the service is highly dependent on neighborhood. So in the Tenderloin, my God, parking is so cheap, $10, I can't believe it. But in the financial district, oh my God, what a disaster. And then some places don't have density like Pack Heights or Cow Hollow, but they do have a serious parking problem. Have you thought about monthly parking where people can just do 100 in-outs or 50 in-outs a month and pay you $200 a month to just have their car sent anywhere? What's up with the monthly subscription?
So we started monthlies about 2 months ago. And
really?
We went from 0 to now crossing over 1,000 monthly subscribers who are.
Well, how come I don't see that in the app?
That's fantastic.
There is if you go into the menu section, right now I'm in the middle of a transaction, so you can't see it, but if you go in the menu section, there's a thing that says monthlies, and you click on there and you answer a few questions, and then we'll reach out to you. It hasn't been productized yet, so that's next for us.
What is it going to cost to do a monthly?
About $300 in San Francisco.
Oh, that's not bad at all.
No.
And how many in-outs do you get?
It's unlimited.
Dude, I'm going to bankrupt you.
Yeah.
That's.
That
give you the
be careful with that because that's really dangerous because
yeah.
then I park it at the Battery, I have a breakfast, I get the car, I drive it to work, you pick it up again, you park it again.
We have different tiers. So there's some tiers that are lower depending on how many ins and outs you have.
Right.
So the 300-ish threshold is for unlimited.
Are you getting decent margin on this? Like, what's
we
your
are
fee
because there's
structure?
breakage on the subscription model, right? And so the margin starts to actually work quite.
Because somebody might go on vacation for a week or two, they don't cancel it.
Right.
Right.
You can imagine the churn being a lot less.
Right.
Yeah, once you commit to this,
Right.
and so you're actually competing then with somebody renting a garage at home and at work.
Yeah.
Interesting. This is really interesting. This is so like now I'm starting to run the scenarios. Like I don't spend much time. This is all about my life is all about my kid, right? I don't spend much time at my kid's school because it is impossible to park there because it's become the hottest. In fact, Automatic is the company that is making it hard to park there because they're right next door. So like I could actually schedule a valet to park my car at the school where there is absolutely no parking. It's like Bryant Street in the Mission.
Yep.
And then like I could have a meeting and wow, so it's actually making it possible for me to do things that I wasn't able to do before.
People can share cars now, which is really cool, right?
Tell me about that.
Think about like files, right? Files were stored on your hard drive. You can only access it on your computer.
Yeah.
Now, like files are stored in the cloud, and then anyone can access it, but also you can access it from anywhere.
So this is cloud storage for my car?
It is. So you store your car with us, and then per your point, like if you're at the battery, but you didn't park with us at the battery, you can get your car pulled from there.
Wow.
And then you can have
You and I could share a car.
Dude, I bet you
mean,
have a way nicer car than I do.
I have a Tesla. Yeah, that's pretty nice.
Yeah.
But that's actually a pretty cool idea.
I have a
People
10-year-old Prius.
You could be the you could be the webbing of sharing a car. So if I had a corporate car,
Right.
let's say the launch festival bought a car, I could allow any employee to have the
Wow.
login.
Wow.
And for you, it's just wow.
So that changes fleet management.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's pretty neat.
Ooh.
And the people who are working for you, I talk to them. They're making $15 an hour plus tips.
roughly, yeah.
That's what they told me. I'm an
Right.
investor, so I always
Yeah.
investigate these things.
Yep.
So they're making upwards of $20 an hour with the tips.
Right.
This is what they told me. This is pretty good living for San Francisco
not
for
bad.
somebody who doesn't even need to have a high school degree, just a driver's license.
Or even a car.
Or even a car.
Right.
Right, because when you work for Uber or for Sprig or Instacart,
Right,
you have to
right.
show up with a car.
Right.
So it's almost, if you have the car though, you get paid maybe $25, $30 an hour in the other services. So
Right.
this is for all those other people.
How are you transporting the valets back and forth to where they need to be?
So you
Yeah,
guys have
like-
probably seen we're on push scooters. So we've actually
They're on
moved-
Razor scooters.
Oh, that's so cute.
And then they always ask you very politely, is it okay for me to put this in the trunk? Do you have like a body in the trunk or something? Like,
Right,
they don't know what's in your trunk. Or can I put it in the back seat? But what they do that's really nice is in the beginning, they would just throw it in the car, and I'd be like, dude,
Yes.
it's been like in the tenderloin. Now they have a bag.
So
Right.
this is one
So
of
they
those-
put it into a bag,
Oh,
and then they
so
put the
nice.
bag very gently in your trunk. And
So these are the things, customer experience on these on-demand products really depend on how are you treating your supply side, your drivers, your valets, and how are you treating your customers, and how do those two things create value together? And I
Yeah.
think a lot of the early on-demand companies really lost sight of that, of like those details. Like
Yeah.
you have to get those details right. And every on-demand product, the best ambassador for your company is that valet. The
Yeah.
best ambassador for every on-demand company is the service provider who's having a human interaction.
Yeah.
And you want them to be the one that like gets the lock-in, the customer lock-in.
Awesome. Curtis, this is really great progress. I'm a huge fan of the app. Congratulations on the
Thanks.
success. Next up is Scout. David, you're here. Good to see you.
See you.
And now this one is really near and dear to my heart because you went through the launch incubator.
That's right.
Tell the folks a little bit about the experience in the launch incubator since we're going to be accepting applications and people should know what's it like, what you learned. Would you recommend it on a scale of 1 to 10?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'd give it a 10. Everyone should apply. There were just six companies total in our class.
Graduated. 8 started.
graduating. 8. That's true. So
Which
you
I
get a
think
lot
is
of
a
one-on-one
that's a
time.
good testament. If a couple just don't quite make it, that's not a bad thing. That's a good
No,
thing.
yeah, it's Navy SEALs. Yeah.
And so you really get to know the other founders. You get a lot of time for really in-depth feedback, and you get to know the other products. And that's really cool. I mean, it's amazing to have that network of support. James was also in the incubator, and
Yep.
it's amazing that I can turn to James at any point and get feedback from him.
Great. So show us what you built with Scout and how it's going.
Great. So Scout helps travelers find off the beaten path, incredible activities with no planning. And so what we do is we connect you with a local assistant who can find and book any experience on your trip. So I've pulled in here a conversation from a real user last week. This is somebody who actually used the app. It's a chat experience, and you can see that this woman, Joni, when she signed up for Scout, she answered a few questions about herself, and then she was connected with Michelle, who is a local. We find passionate locals who care about the city that they live in. They are often writers or bloggers, and we pay them an hourly rate. It's $15 an hour, and we make them available to people who are traveling in the city to find those quirky, off-the-beaten-path kind of places that you wouldn't be able to find with a Google search. And so you can see here, this is a common arc for us. Joni discovered the app, And she realizes a few days before her trip, uh-oh, I don't know what I'm going to do. I haven't had time to plan this. And so she says, what should we do? Should we go to Alcatraz? And of course, Alcatraz is sold out at the last minute. But Michelle found her a boutique sailing tour that still had availability, that could take her out under the bay. It sends over a little card view where she can see photos and a map and that sort of thing. And then she can actually book it right through the app. So she can send text back and forth and take care of booking it. And what's really cool is the arc that our users follow. And so what we've seen is they start using it to plan their trip. But over time, as they realize that Michelle or the scout is going to respond instantly, they start using it for real-time requests. And they start using it as they would use Search or Yelp or something like that.
So they're driving down through Half Moon Bay, and instead of going into Yelp, they just say, where do I eat lunch?
That's exactly right.
This would be so much better than Yelp. Yeah.
It actually works. I'm addicted to using it. I'll use it on the
Really?
weekends and say, what should I do with my 5-year-old? And they go do the work. But what's really interesting for this concierge is they'll actually book the tickets and keep your credit card on file. But how do you make money?
Right. So we add a service fee of 10% to anything we book. So we don't take any kickbacks for our recommendations. It's a genuine recommendation from a local, unlike a lot of hotel concierges who are taking kickbacks and only sending you to the places that they know they're going to get money for. And we add a 10% service fee on top of anything we book. So in this case, we booked the sailing tour, and then later on, she ended up booking hot springs.
Esalen. That's a
in
good
Big
one.
Sur. She actually went on to book several other things that I didn't copy over into this conversation.
So, you called it a concierge, but I've never had a concierge experience that was anything like that.
No. Yeah, it's pretty effective. Will you be able to make this profitable? So it's $15 an hour that you pay to the concierge. They're pretty happy with that because they can work in their underwear, or they could. Are they doing this while they're at work? Do you think?
No. So
How do you know?
We interview them pretty thoroughly, and we keep pretty close tabs. We're also pretty small.
Okay. But the person could theoretically be at work at Google and just be answering queries for people.
I suppose so. We want to keep them pretty busy. These also tend to be the kind of people who they're so passionate about their city and the little places that they write about the city, but they often don't hold a job at Google or that sort of thing.
So these are people who would be writing Yelp reviews anyway.
That's right. They want to be involved in this sort of thing.
So they're getting paid $15 an hour. How many people can they service per hour? And then what is the average ticket price? So will you make any money off of this? So the 10% surcharge, it's pretty reasonable if you're buying something for $200 or $300. You pay $20, $30 and not have to fill out any forms.
That's right.
But how many can they do an hour, realistically?
So at a macro scale, there's 30% more money spent every year on tours and activities than the entire accommodation industry. That's all hotel rooms, all Airbnbs, everything. You can see it's a massive market. It's really disaggregated, so it's really underserved. And what we're finding at a micro level is that our average booking is $180. We take 10% of that, so we take $18. So all we need is one booking every hour and a half or so to come out on top. Plus, we average over 2 bookings per person who books through the app. So once somebody books once, they end up booking multiple times over the course of their trip.
And how many different cities? I'm sorry. How many different cities are you? Is this available in now?
Just 2 right now: San Diego and San Francisco.
It's a very new company. Do you need to have an invite to get in, or is it open to the public?
It's invite only right now.
Okay, so if people here want to get it, they can just email David at.
That's right, or you can use the access code VIP.
Oh, use the access code VIP and try it out and give feedback. And they can email David at.
They can email David at HelloScout.
HelloScout.com. Well, let's hear it for David. Well done.
Great, thank you.
Very nice.
I think it's got great potential because my feeling is people are going to use it primarily when they're in their home city. I think David
that's what I was
feels
thinking.
differently about that.
Sorry?
Like date
I've
night.
always felt that this was for people using in their home city. Is it for your home city and it's like having an assistant, or is it for when you're on vacation? What do you think?
So people do use it here in their home. People use it in San Francisco who live in San Francisco, or in San Diego who live in San Diego. We've seen people use it to book flowers for their wife's birthday, all sorts of things like that. We have a
like
policy.
Magic or Operator or those services.
That's right. But we're really focused on the travel use case because we want to
Experiences,
focus very clearly on one one solution for one customer
Right.
and do a really good job with
So,
that.
that's one of those growth strategies. I think, though, that date night and, new parents who have like one chance every month to like actually be adults together, like those are the moments that I think will create a lot of volume when it's time to create volume.
I think you're right.
It's really interesting, too, because you can use it for non-paid activities. So I say, what are some things I can do outdoorsy? My daughter wants to swim, and they're like, so they put me on to like, oh yeah, there's a place you can go swimming up in Marin. There's like, if you want to go swimming,
I've
like where do you go
heard about that
swimming?
place.
And there's
Yeah.
like 3 or 4 places in Marin where you can actually public pools that are clean.
Yeah.
And there's nobody using them.
That's right.
And they can find them, and they don't get paid for that. So
Right.
you're okay with people using it and saying, what unpaid things can I do today that are awesome?
Totally. We
Totally
love
fine.
that. Yeah.
Great.
Awesome.
Love it.
I love the company. I love the founder, too. Okay, James, you also went through the incubator, and this is a really cool product idea that's actually, I think right now, you might be, in terms of growth, the most successful company to come out of the incubator so far. Show what you're working on.
Yeah, so Wrapify is the world's first crowdsourced ad platform. We pay consumer drivers to advertise on their personal vehicle. So it's kind of like Uber, but instead of putting a stranger in your car, we're putting ads on your car. Let me show you how it works. I'm logging in as a driver who has already done some of the audit miles. So when you sign up as a Wrapify driver, we track about 50 of your miles before you can start accepting campaigns. It looks like it's loading here.
On the LTE, yeah. And what, who are you, while it's loading, what are some of the companies using it so far?
So today we have companies like Petco, Quest Nutrition, TriNet, as well as a handful of the companies that have come out of our incubator, as well as the startup community here in San Francisco.
We were talking backstage about, I said, are you going to do the equivalent of a public service announcement? It sounds like you might have some interesting things there for like nonprofit, social good kind of stuff as well.
Exactly. So we're actually working with the Ad Council, which if you've ever seen like a Smokey the Bear ad or any one of those types of campaigns on the road, drunk driving is buzz driving, that organization actually is a not-for-profit organization that works with big outdoor advertising companies, and we're actually working with them today to put some campaigns on the road in the cities that we're active.
Okay.
So when you log in, you're able to see as an audit driver how many miles you've driven for the day, the week, and the month. But none of that's really that important. What we want to show you is some of the campaigns that are now available to that driver. So it looks like I've got a handful of campaigns that are active in my portal. Looks like some of the stuff is just loading right here. We've got TriNet, Harrah's Resorts, Quest Nutrition,
cool.
Petco, Home Hero, and as a driver, I get to choose which brand I'm going to have on my car. So I'm a fitness junkie. I love Quest Nutrition, so I'm going to check out that campaign. I see the campaign area, so the advertiser actually creates the campaign area in our advertising platform online. They set a daily mile cap. In this case, it's 25 miles. And it shows me I'll make about somewhere between $12 and $31 a day by driving for Quest. So that's really interesting to me. So I'm going to go ahead and click Continue. I'm going to select the amount of wrap coverage on my vehicle. I want to make the most money with my vehicle on the road. So I'm going to select Full. I'm going to confirm the details of the campaign, and then I'm going to click Join. And then what happens is we schedule a wrap appointment with one of our partner network wrap shops. Your car gets wrapped, and the moment you go to pick your car up, you start rolling on the road, you start making extra cash. So this is a great way to monetize your daily commute, doing something you already do.
And if you're making, it looks like about $20 a day,
Right.
you could just have a Luxe driver drive it around and pay for the car.
It's funny you mentioned that because I actually use Luxe quite a bit in the city, and they park my Wrapify branded car all the time in the financial districts.
And you're getting paid for that.
Yeah.
So you're just doing the arbitrage, basically.
Exactly.
And do you guys use the automatic plugin we saw over there to track everything?
We don't use automatic. We actually have our own proprietary technology. The app actually connects with a beacon that's embedded in the wrap. But we think that what automatic is doing is really interesting.
Peter, any questions about this? Would you consider wrapping your Tesla?
I was wondering, is there specific like brand models of cars that it's limited to, or is it more flexible in the sense that since it's being brought to a wrap shop, that they can work with pretty much anything?
That's a great question. So right now there's 3 criteria to becoming a Wrapify driver. You have to have a 2008 or newer vehicle, you have to be 21 or older, and you have to have a clean criminal and vehicle history background check. So we background check all of our drivers, and we make sure that these are responsible drivers on the road. We're able to track things like their speed on the road, so they're actually not getting paid if they're speeding on the roads. And then we have a number of other pieces or a number of other controls that we're able to monitor and manage on a daily basis.
That's very interesting. So they don't get paid if they're speeding. So that means that not only
You got to
do we know
define
what their
speeding.
speed
Plus
is,
10, plus
Right.
10?
So we have a variable depending on the speed limit on the road.
Got
is
it.
there like an alert that's like, whoop,
You're
gone
not getting
into
paid.
Exactly.
Yeah, those are all great questions. So yeah, today we try not to distract the driver while they're driving,
Right.
but they're aware of it when they sign up.
I think one of the coolest features, at least when you were conceiving of the product in the incubator, and just so folks know, the reason we run these events and we're so open about them, if it's not absolutely completely obvious, is we want to get as many entrepreneurs in here and get them to apply to our incubator. This is,
Right.
You know, in terms of our funnel, inviting so many great entrepreneurs here and giving away those demo pit tables, it helps us find new companies. So
Right.
if you're here, apply to the incubator. One of the ideas you had was the swarm idea.
Great.
And this to me seemed like it was even better than people driving. What is the swarm idea, and has it worked? Have people started using it yet? Is it in the product yet?
Yeah, so it's actually no longer an idea. It's a feature that we're actually testing today. Now, as a show of hands, how many people saw the butterfly car parked outside?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh my God, everybody.
So pretty much everybody. So
Right.
Butterfly is one of our advertisers on the platform today. We pushed out a swarm offer, which is a notification that gets pushed out to all of their campaign vehicles to park in front of or drive around a specific location. So we pushed out that swarm offer to all available drivers here in the city, and we were able to get one of those drivers to show up and park their Butterfly car right in front of the event venue. So it's a great way to not only help the drivers augment their income even more, but also be able to provide even more brand value to the advertisers on the platform.
So why are people choosing to do this? So like, you know, I have one would have a relatively new car, you know, I drive around. Yes, there's money involved. Are they doing it to pay their car payment? Are they like, what is the profile of the person who's choosing to opt into this as a way to make money?
So right now, our core demographic of Wrapify drivers is someone between the age of 21 and 35, somebody who either has a job but doesn't necessarily have a career yet, and they want to cover their car insurance, their car payment, maybe their student loans. This is a great way to be able to do that. In fact, many of our drivers are able to pay their car payment, their insurance, and their gas by driving Wrapify.
What's the most somebody's made in a month? I mean, I know you've only been out for a couple of months now, but what driver has made the most amount of money in a month? Because swarms, what do they get paid for a swarm? $50, $100,
Yeah,
$25?
so today our swarm driver was making $100 to do that swarm offer. So they were making $100 plus what they're doing on their normal monthly, daily commute. So right now we have some drivers that are very tactical with their commute, and they'll actually drive during peak hours on roads they know they're going to make the most. And we have a few drivers that have made almost $600 in a single month.
Which means they're paying for their car and making a living, probably.
Oh, yeah.
What kind of a car could you get for $600 a month? I don't know.
You could get a
Probably
pretty nice
get a
car.
nice
I think it's probably, if you look at 50 months, that would be $30,000 in payments. So it'd probably be at $20,000 for the resale value of the car. It'd be a $40,000 or $50,000 car.
Yeah.
Nice.
How hard is it for a company to design and create a wrap?
Yeah, so what we do is we make the platform really, really simple. As an advertiser, when you log in, you create your campaign area by drawing a polygon on a map or selecting one of our predefined polygons. You select the amount of vehicles you want on your campaign, and then you upload some brand creative, whether it's an existing billboard ad, existing magazine, online, or just your brand pack if you just have a vector logo. We have an in-house design agency that will take that artwork and will adapt it to a vehicle to be the most effective on the road.
And so if I'm not a brand, but I just want to troll people or something, like, is that an option?
Yeah, if you want to just put Jason's face all over the car.
Yeah,
have it swarm and like freak people out.
It actually, you could, interestingly, I would think during this political season, voting for Hillary and having 100 Hillary cars parked somewhere where it's a deciding state would be huge. They spend tons of money. Have you thought about the election?
We absolutely have. So one of our first sales associates actually comes to us from Politico. And we actually purposefully made that decision to bring somebody who's already sold advertising into the political crowd.
I'm going to send like 100 Bernie Sanders cars to like the most Republican. That would be a great use of trolling time.
It would be really fun to have all the Donald Trump cars and all the Bernie Sanders cars
yeah.
in the same place at the same time and like have them parked.
They're going to be
against each other.
huge. We're
Yes.
going to have the hugest cars on Wrapify. It turns out there are some cars that have more branding space than other. Like I know the Ford Flex is just a big milk carton.
Right.
Is that car more money because it has more advertising space, and does like a little smart car get less money?
So today, that's actually not part of the pricing. So that right now, our pricing algorithm really looks at pricing the mile. And we look at things like time of day, traffic flow, the demographic information about the city. And then we also provide a lot of that information and that feedback back to the advertiser. So we're one of the only outdoor advertising platforms that gives live data feedback back to the advertiser with information like impressions and demographic information, all live data.
Great.
This is amazing. I mean, just seeing what the on-demand economy is sort of evolving.
Yes.
People are really getting creative. We have one more supplemental suggestion.
There are two,
There's
actually.
two. Okay,
Yeah.
so doctors on demand. This is pretty amazing.
Yeah, and they were here in the demo pit, so I got to spend a little bit of time with them yesterday.
Oh,
and
good.
when you think about that thermometer we were looking at earlier, and you think about all of these kinds of things, where else is on-demand actually making a huge difference? And there's been the teledoc service for a long time where you could call up on the telephone, but it really hasn't had the impact that we want. And I think partially that's because we want a face-to-face relationship with our physician. We want to say look the doctor in the eye and say like, oh my God, my kid has a fever, what do I do? And have that conversation with a real person. What I think is great about this service is that they actually are able to do it relatively instantaneously. So like some of the dermatology ones have a 24-hour cycle time before you get the data back. This is right away. And
So live video.
live video.
And what does it cost? $200, $100?
Yeah, it's $40 a visit at this point, so they've got a flat fee. And they have a couple thousand doctors in the network, which seems to be sufficient to get that sort of real on-demand kind of experience.
It's pretty amazing how affordable these are coming. The company Get Meadow, which is a cannabis company, it's $100 to have them actually, or $150 I've heard, to have them come to a house and actually give you a prescription.
Oh my God! Do you remember Cosmo a really long time ago?
Yes.
Cosmo kind of was killed because it became the pot delivery service.
That was the rumor, was that you
rumor.
could get your Haagen-Dazs
Yes.
and your Netflix.
And your
A DVD and
marijuana.
that,
Yep.
yeah.
All
All
at the
that
same time.
together.
So now we really have that. Is it only available in Colorado?
Yeah, and so you had one more, which is Sherpa Share. What's that?
Yeah, so Sherpa Share is actually, for these guys, I think a lot more relevant. So Sherpa Share takes all of the different, so if I'm in the gig economy and I'm driving for Uber, I'm also driving for Lyft, and I just swap out the thing. This is a consolidated dashboard that helps you with your taxes. It helps you kind of see all of the ramifications of all these services. So they've got integrations with all of these different gig economy people, especially related to driving. So this is for drivers. But the thing that I really love about this company is that they've turned it into also a community. So it's really worth it to download this app, even if you're not a driver, just to read the comment threads as people are talking to each other about their experiences on these different ride-sharing services. I mean, it's not only is it hysterical sometimes, but I think there's huge utility value. And I wanted to mention this one because what we're starting to see is, I think an industry is always getting real when you see these aftermarket kind of add-on supporting the people, the workforce
The
that's in
tools,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like that next meta level of, and that's when you know you have an economy rather than a trend.
Yeah, it's really becoming a staple of the economy that people would work for
Right.
3 or 4 different services. Do you have people who work for Luxe or Scout that are working for other services as well? Do you find? Yeah.
Yep.
So people will be doing 2 or 3 different gigs. And you guys will lose them if you don't make it a great deal. From what I understand, and talking to Bento and some of the other services, it's highly competitive for this $15 to $30 an hour class of workers in San Francisco. Is that true?
Yeah, it certainly is, especially in San Francisco, which is our most competitive market.
And so how are you dealing with that? Are you have to keep raising rates? Are you giving them bonuses for a certain number of hours
I think we have
worked?
to remember, we have 2 constituents. We have the customers, and then we have the supply side, right? All the drivers, and so we have to keep them, well trained, but also kind of engaged with the platform. I think the one differentiator is that we don't require a car. So in essence, we don't directly compete with a lot of the other services.
Right. Postmates, I guess, has some non-car
That's right.
folks as well. What about the Scout concierges? I mean, it seems like a very unique type of work, but you are competing with full-time employment or other gigs they could have?
That's right, yeah. Often they are writers for local 7x7 or other local magazines. And we try and build a community, so we really try and focus on getting them engaged with the Scout brand, getting them engaging with each other, sharing best practices between each other, and make them feel like they're part of something bigger, which really helps, I think, keep the retention high.
Yeah, culture.
You know, I've been working with on-demand companies for a long time now.
Yeah.
I worked early with TaskRabbit and the founders of Lyft and all of these guys. And one of the things that seems to really be a determinant of long-term success is building that relationship and increasing the quality of the drivers, the service providers, making them not only feel loyal to your brand, but actually enhancing their lives and giving them something to really take pride in. So they're not just supply side, they're not just supply, they're actually human beings that are part of representing your brand.
Awesome. Okay, let's hear it for Scout, Wrapify, and Luxe, Peter and Janice. And let me also thank a bunch of our sponsors. Big thank you to Facebook Start and Wilson Cincini. Big round of applause for them, and Pivotal.
Yes.